Hey, welcome back everyone. I just want to preface this video by first saying that some of the information I'm presenting may not be entirely complete or details are missing as it relates to a case handled by the Department of Homeland Security in 2013. I'm not putting any of my opinions out there in order to stay objective. This is rather just an interesting anecdote in the world of collectible firearms. This past May, I had the opportunity to visit the Warsaw Uprising Museum in Warsaw, Poland. This is a really interesting and intriguing museum that does a really fine job of bringing to light Poland's brutal World War II experience under the occupation of Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union. It mostly covers the 2-month period between August and October 1944, where the underground resistance of Poland, called the Polish Home Army, rose up against German occupation using a collection of stolen and makeshift weapons built up throughout the previous 5 years. Numerous displays and artifacts show not only the weapons used by the Home Army, but also the utter destruction of the city in the aftermath of the battle. Now, much of the fighting was done ferociously from street block to street block, sewer to sewer, and the Home Army was able to take most of central Warsaw early in the fighting. The uprising was ultimately prompted by the Polish government in exile in London under the belief that the advancing Red Army, right on the doorsteps of Warsaw, would quickly come to their aid and end the 5-year German occupation of their city. However, Stalin instead decided to hold most of his Soviet forces on the other side of the Vistula River and wait for Germans to crush the uprising first. German forces would be left weaker and the Soviet Union wouldn't have to deal with the possibility of pro-Western Polish sentiment standing in the way of a post-war communist Poland. In the end, over 16,000 members of the Polish Home Army were killed and another 20,000 Polish civilians were killed in the aftermath, leaving 85% of the city completely destroyed. This museum pays tribute to those who fought and were lost during the fighting. Now, one intriguing display that caught my eye was a rifle that looked oddly like a miniature version of a Browning automatic rifle. Upon further inspection of the nameplate, I saw that it was labeled a Kbsp WZ1938, which stands for Self-Repeating Rifle Model 1938M, which I had never heard of before, but knew right away that it was a self-loading rifle because of its exterior features. This rifle was unique in that it was an early example of a semi-automatic weapon developed and considered for adoption by a European power prior to the start of World War II. It was originally developed by Polish engineer Józef Maroszek, who had been building prototype self-loading rifles since the early 1930s and won a Polish government self-loading rifles trial test in 1934. Starting in 1936, several samples of this rifle were manufactured, and a small batch of roughly 150 of them were ordered to be manufactured by the Polish Army in 1938. Because of the invasion of Poland in 1939, we don't know if the Polish Army intended for it to be put into general production, and the only known use of this weapon in combat was by the designer himself, who claims to have shot down 2 low-flying German aircraft with his invention during the evacuation of the Polish Weaponry Technology Institute. Allegedly, the gunner of one of the planes was injured and a pilot of the other aircraft was killed while Joseph was firing through the cabin window of the train car he was occupying. This is according to his post-war memoirs. An unknown number of these rifles are said to still exist today, but at least 6 are accounted for, I think. And again, this is not really well documented. Now, the Model 38, or the Maroszek, uses a Browning-style upward tilting bolt locking mechanism, has a gas tube midway up the barrel, and ejects spent shells through the top of the receiver. Furthermore, it's chambered in 8mm Mauser and is fed through the top of the receiver using stripper clips into a non-detachable magazine, box magazine that is, with a capacity for 10 cartridges. It weighs just about 9.9 pounds, has an overall length of 44.6 inches, and a barrel length of 24.6 inches. The rear sight is a typical Mauser tangent leaf design that is adjustable from 300 to 2,000 meters. So I thought this was a pretty cool gun that I had stumbled upon in the museum. So when I returned home to the United States, I did a little more research into this rifle and the other examples known to still exist around the world. I soon discovered that the particular rifle on display at the Warsaw Uprising Museum, serial number 1019, was the subject of an international dispute between the Polish government and a firearms collector who then resided in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Now, without full knowledge of the backstory, I'll share what I've gathered from several online sources and articles published about the incident. For example, there was an article published by the Denver Post in 2013 that discusses the dispute in more detail. There's an additional blog post from guns.com in 2014 referencing the episode. You can also find some additional scattered information from the Washington Post and Washington Times, but not much after the year of the incident. Now, this story begins really on March 8th, 2013, when several agents of the Department of Homeland Security, it's been noted in several different sources that it varied between 2 to 4 agents, entered the Virginia home of Kristopher Gasior, who then proceeded to seize his Maroszek Model 38 rifle from his private weapons collection. The reason behind this sudden confiscation: the Polish government claimed that because the rifle was stolen from them during World War II, it was therefore rightfully Polish state property. Even though the rifle was brought home as a war trophy by an American GI after the war, Polish officials reasoned that war trophies could only be of captured enemy origin, and because Poland was an allied power alongside the United States, that it was still technically Polish property. Kristopher himself, a Polish immigrant coming to the United States in the 1980s, acquired the rifle in 1993 from another collector. But when he decided to sell some of his collection online, the Polish government noticed. They consider the rifle to have highly important cultural and engineering significance to them, and quickly jumped on the opportunity to retrieve this extremely rare weapon. Alright, so long story short, Chris, the United States government, and the Polish government seemed to want to avoid a long, drawn-out international claims battle, and he then decided to come to an agreement with the Polish government to transfer the ownership of the rifle to them for $25,000, far less than the $65,000 he put it on the market for. As part of this deal, the Polish government agreed that this rifle would be put on display at the Warsaw Uprising Museum, and so there currently resides for gun enthusiasts like me to take pictures of and look at. You know, this of course wouldn't be a rare weapon if this rifle wasn't featured in a Forgotten Weapons episode with Ian McCollum, who filmed an overview of the gun at the James D. Julia auction house in the spring of 2017. Ian shows us a breakdown of the rifle and its inner workings, as he beautifully does every time. Now, the one Ian is showing in his video, however, is serial number 1048, while the one involved in the 2013 controversy is number 1019. According to the archives of the 2017 James D. Julia auction house sale, the Polish government, more specifically the Polish Ministry of National Defense, purchased rifle 1048 at the April 2017 auction for $69,000 from the private collection of Bob Ferris, American firearms expert and Korean War educator who passed away in 2012. Rifle 1048 is now on display at the Polish Army Museum, and Ian actually uploaded a video of this just recently where he walks past it and makes reference to the Julia auction house video on it from 2017. So go check it out, and I'll link to that in the video description. So it looks like the Polish government won't pass up on an opportunity to get all known examples of the Maroszek Model 38 back into Poland, but opted to just buy it at auction this time rather than go through the headache of getting the US State Department involved. Rifle 1019 is at the Warsaw Uprising Museum, like I've shown here. Number 1027 is at the collection of the Polish Army Museum in Warsaw, although this one is deactivated, along with number 1048, which is the one that Ian McCollum had shown in his video. Other known examples of the Maroszek 1938 outside of Poland: number 1014 is in the hands of a private German collector, I believe. Number 1030 is in the private collection of a Polish-American collector based in Chicago, and one is said to reside in the Central Armed Forces Museum in Moscow, serial number unknown, and there could be more out there in private collections that simply haven't been made known to the public, or simply they are lost to history. One could pop up in an attic sometime in the future, but more than likely they were destroyed during the war. These, again, I said, weren't really well documented. But anyway, this has been a really interesting artifact that I saw walking through a museum with some more recent but interesting history behind it. So again, thanks for watching.